Yeah. It's right, the blocking. Yeah, okay, let's move it all the way to here. Um, yeah, Sai Sreekar, this is Sai Sreekar's first talk ever. Yeah, long time ago. But yeah, I think we've had a lot of interest in self-hosting, which is both surprising and not surprising at the same time. So it's good to have one more self-hosting talk this month as well. This time it's a lot different than some of the older self-hosting talks that we've had. For example, the one that we had last month around. So yeah, Sai Sreekar, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I say who I am, I'd like to say who I am not. I'm not a coder, I'm not a techie, and I'm not someone who can build projects without AI tools. So, who am I? I'm a freelance content writer. I help SaaS businesses with blog posts, email sequences, and landing page content. So, last year I built this project, Cloud Independent Blog, in simple words, my forever blog, with the help of Perplexity. So today I'll talk all about it. But before that, let's just take a look at the flow of this talk. So the beginning, how it all started, the end, the final output of this project, my journey, how I did it all, and there were some add-ons like I did for this project. So I'll talk about them. Also the pitfalls. I did fill in some pitfalls, so I'll talk about them. Then highlights, behind the scenes, and at the end I have a bonus tip for all of you. So, uh, but let's make it more interesting. Why not I show you the final output right away? What do you say, guys? You ready?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So that's my server, Raspberry Pi 02W, hosting my blog, and this is the link to my blog. Let me walk you through it.
It was right in the next tab. And alt tab back.
Yeah. This is my blog, Sreekar Scribbles. It's my homepage, and uh, here are all my blog posts. Let's take a look at one of the blog posts. So this is how it looks like.
Hello.
Yeah. So this is how it looks like. Uh, by the way, all this is made with help with just HTML and CSS because that's what I'm familiar with. So since we have seen the final output, now let's go back to the point where it all started.
Yeah, just control tab. Let me do this.
Yeah. So one day I was watching this podcast where yeah. So one day I was watching this podcast where Tim Ferriss, the guy on the left, and Derek Sivers, the guy on the right, were discussing about tech independence. Derek narrated a story where a tech-savvy entrepreneur stored photographs of his kid right from he was born till the kid was 10 years. So basically, for 10 long years, he stored all his kids' photos on Google Photos, basically cloud. So one day, when he was about to launch a Google App business, Google asked him if he wanted to merge it with his existing account. Then he said yes, and in no time, all the photographs were lost. He tried contacting customer service and all, but no luck. The photos were gone. So listening to this story, I wondered what's one digital asset that I never want to vanish. So my answer was my write-ups on my blog. So that's how I decided to build a cloud independent blog, and I began this little journey of little cloud independence. Yeah, so I made my decision that I'd go on this journey, but I had absolutely no idea how to go from here to there. So, by the way, guys, if you have noticed, this is star mark for cloud independent blog. So let's talk about that. Remember that. So yeah, I made the decision, but and in the podcast, Derek did explain how to achieve cloud independence, but most of it went over the top of my head. All I understood was that I needed a server, a domain, and some SSH connection. So with this tiny amount of knowledge, I went straight to the travel guide of the journey perplexity. So and had a chat with it. After 30-minute chat and a lot of head scratching moments, I understood that I needed to pack some essentials before I could go on this journey. So these were the essentials I packed. One Raspberry Pi 02W, so that's my server. Then a memory card to store all my write-ups, basic HTML and CSS code to give a structure to my blog, USB cable for with OTG support for file transfer, of course, power supply for Pi. So these were the essentials. I got my essentials. I was ready to go on this journey, and I started. So before I move to the next slide, I just want to give you a heads up. So while I was on this journey, I encountered a lot of technical stuff which I quite didn't understand. To be honest, I just followed what Perplexity suggested me. I just copy pasted the Raspberry Pi commands with all the little modifications that it suggested me to do so. So, if you have any technical questions about this project, you can contact my travel guide for this project, Perplexity. So, with that said, this was my first checkpoint, initial setup. I flashed OS onto Raspberry Pi, configured SSH, hostname, Wi-Fi user, all that, and modified the boot files for USB file transfer. Then the next checkpoint was basic configuration, like SSH into Pi, and then update the system. And then I've installed this Nginx. It's a powerful web server and traffic manager for websites. And then web server setup. So lot of commands again. So the first one was like I created a directory for my blog and configured the Nginx. And guys, like if you are someone like me who doesn't understand all these technical commands, take it easy. Just copy paste them and do all the little modifications. For example, instead of your domain name, you put your domain. So do that and the job will be done. So yeah, after this, yeah. So guys, like if you remember, I talked about the star mark, right? So it's time to talk about it. So once I reached this checkpoint, I was on the path to do DNS configuration, port forwarding, and SSL certification, and a lot of technical stuff. So that was quite overwhelming. Not these commands. That part was actually overwhelming. So I did take a slight detour. So that detour is Cloudflare tunneling. So basically, the problem with this is my blog is dependent on Cloudflare now. So it's not completely cloud independent. But in my defense, the content management is cloud independent, but the content delivery is cloud dependent. So basically, the right way to do, like, if you guys are like tech friendly, you can go ahead, do the DNS management, port forwarding, SSL certification, DDoS attack management. It's good to say all these technical terms. So, so these are some things you can do it all by yourself and get the job done without and discard this idea. But I couldn't, so outfit tunneling it is. And then some security setup with UFW firewall, and then I updated my content and the blog was live. So that's what that's how I created. I mean I built this project, and there were some add-ons. So there's a website called Umami. It helps with the analytics. It's quite simple. You just give your domain name and then it gives your tracking ID, which you put it in index.html, right, header section, and boom, you get the analytics. So these are the analytics from my blog, and this is Uptime Bot. So Arvind, one of my friends, he helped me set it up. So basically, what it does is like whenever my server goes down because of the power failure or whatever, so it notifies me. I get a message that my server is down, and then I get a message that server is down, and if it is like up and running again, I get another message. You can note it later on, but like just wanted to try this thing, so we tried. These were the two add-ons, and like this was a journey, but it was not so smooth sailing. So I did have some pitfalls. So the first one was not starting the project itself. As I said, too many technical aspects, too many technicalities, all those commands and all. So that was a bit overwhelming. But I gave it a shot anyway. I tried, like I got past that hesitation and I took up this project. So like if you are like me, don't worry. Just copy paste the commands. If you get errors, ask Perplexity again, and it will tell you. I'm sure you guys know this. So the next was not seeking help when required. So though there are AI tools, sometimes what happens is you get stuck at a point in a loop. So maybe you may give a wrong prompt, or maybe the AI is hallucinating. So at that point, run to your developer friends if you have any. If not, go to Reddit, create a thread, ask people, or any other sources where you can seek help from. So don't waste a lot of time at one particular thing if you are stuck in a loop. So I wasted a lot of time sourcing. So then power supply issue. So if you recall the picture I shown in earlier, So right now, like I took a phone charger and plugged it in at my home. So, but the problem with that is whenever power goes off, so my server goes down. But the thing is, I live in an apartment. We have a generator. So even if the power goes, it will come back in 1 or 2 minutes. So the server down will be for only 1 to 2 minutes. But again, if you want an alternative for that, you can use a small power bank or any other power supply to have a continuous power supply for your server. Then relying solely on SD card storage, right now all my block files are on the SD card itself. It's good to have another local backup. Or else you can do something like you can put all your block files on GitHub and directly clone the repository and push the files directly. But again, that becomes cloud dependence. So if you don't want that, then just add a local backup. And most important, right? I didn't document this project and I had a hard time recalling things for this talk. So don't be like me. Document your stuff when you're doing projects. You never know. Someday your friend, someone like Ibrahim will call you up and say you have to give a talk. So better document it. And though I had pitfalls, I had some good moments as well. So if you remember Derek Silvers, so I emailed him about this project. I told him that like I built this cloud independent project and all that. So he congratulated me. He read one of my blog posts. So that was the sentence basically. Decided not to get donkey. So that was a blog post. He didn't say call me donkey, but that was one of my blog posts I wrote that I don't want to be a donkey. That's another story. Then the other one was like I received this email from a complete stranger on the internet. He found my blog and like he liked it. He asked me like how I did it, and he said that like he wants to do something similar. So I replied to him with all these like I have done, and these were two big moments for me for this project. And behind the scenes. So this picture was taken in a cafe. So before doing all this Cloudflare tunneling, so first Arvind and I we were at a cafe and we hosted it locally, meaning all the people who get access to that cafe's Wi-Fi could visit my blog. So that was before Cloudflare tunneling, and this was when we did the Cloudflare tunneling. So it was hard. I took Arvin's help, and like after Cloudflare tunneling, the blog was live. So I got so excited. I was so happy. So I wanted to capture that. So this was that moment. And yeah, this is the bonus tip. This is the AI prompt. Take a picture if you want. Copy paste that, and it will be done. And again, like here, like I said, like without relying on Cloudflare, like if you don't want that, like if you want something, if you want to do the Cloudflare tunneling instead, just save it and it will be done. That's optional. It's up to you. That was my project. Thank you.
Um, in case it wasn't obvious, like tech is not your full-time job. Yeah, so it's always good to have people who are not from the tech ecosystem still play around with tech and get sort of an outside perspective on how people experience tech. So thank you very much.
I think we all might have experienced that little moment of joy when we did something and it worked.
Yeah.
So that is what Sreekar is sharing.
Yeah. No, I fully agree.
Have a small question.
Yeah, sure.
Tomorrow,
Might not be technical.
if it is, you can just say I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Tomorrow when you write a new blog, how are you putting it on your Raspberry?
Okay, so like initially, like I used to do that like USB say transfer, but now like I put it on GitHub.
Okay.
So from GitHub I'm pushing it. It's like still like cloud dependent.
Okay. So you do SSH and you do Git pull.
Yeah, Git clone repository.
Nice.
Oh, and thank you, Ibrahim.
I thought I would have to bully him to giving a talk, and I asked, hey, give a talk, and he said yes. I was disappointed that I did not have to bully him. Just I did it in one go.
This is what our life is, by the way, as volunteers. They're going around bullying people non-stop every month. And at a certain point, they just give up and say, yeah, okay, fine, I'll come back and do something this month. While Sri Pavan sets up, Sri Pavan, right? Yeah. A small intro and an apology to him. Last month, Prasoon was there. It was a little bit of a chaotic meetup, and we initially told Sri Pavan that yeah, fine, we'll try and do a virtual meetup. Also because it was a weekend right before holidays, so we weren't sure if anybody was going to be around or not. So we thought we'll be able to do a virtual talk, but in the end, we just had to sort of cram everything, and we weren't able to give Sri Pavan the time that he deserves. So thank you very much for being back here and for doing the talk in person. Take it away.
Yeah. Hi everyone, I am Sri Pavan, currently working as AI developer at GIZ. Recently, I have published KitikiPlot, a Python library. In this session, I would like to share my experience on how we can use this plot in different areas. Yeah, let us explore. Yeah, coming to data, we can broadly classify data into two types. One is continuous data. Continuous data takes real values.
Use the microphone.
Yeah, continuous data takes real values. Let us take example of weight of a person or height of a person. The weight of the person could be 57 kg or 57.1 kg or 57.12 kg and so on. It can take any value in the real scale. On the other hand, we are also having another type of data, that is categorical data. Categorical data is actually how we can describe it as discrete groups. We can actually count how many groups exist. Let us take the example of skin color. We can count either the skin color could be brown or pale or medium, etc. or gene sequences. Coming to gene sequences, we are having 4 types of nucleotides: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. We can actually count how many categories exist in the data. Yeah, sliding window. What is sliding window? How can we describe sliding window? Is a queue with simultaneous NQ and DQ operations. Generally, we are all aware of queue data structure. Queue is a data structure which is having NQ and DQ operations. Sliding window is a variant of queue where NQ and DQ operations occur simultaneously, so that we can get the effect of the window is sliding step by step. Here we can easily understand. Here if you find the red color blocks represent sliding window. For each iteration, we can clearly observe that the sliding window is moving one position right side. Yeah, why KitikiPlot? Actually, in Python, we are having a great Python library, already pre-built library, that is Matplotlib. If Matplotlib exists, what is the use of KitikiPlot? Coming to this KitikiPlot, yeah, actually Matplotlib provides functionalities for continuous data. As we previously discussed, there are 2 types of data. One is continuous and another is categorical. Matplotlib provides good functionalities to visualize continuous data. But Matplotlib requires a lot of code so that to curate and to visualize categorical data. That too, sliding window data, when I researched, there does not exist any dedicated Python library. So I decided to design a dedicated Python library so that we can easily visualize categorical data and apply sliding window on the top of it. Here, if you can find, we can find 2 types. One is the right one is continuous data, and here it is categorical data. We can clearly visualize how the window is sliding in the second one. Yeah, its features. Versatility. As sliding window is one of the most frequent and common approach used across several domains from genomics to weather quality monitoring and also to AI model analysis. It is highly versatile. We can use it across multiple domains. Seamless integration. As this Python library is majorly developed in Python programming language, we can easily integrate to our existing workflows. And also customizability. During the development of this library, we designed several types of hyperparameters and also various arguments so that we can easily customize. We can set what should be the X label, what should be the X tick, how can we slide. Previously, when we remember the sliding window, the length of sliding window is only 3. We can change the length of the sliding window and we can also set the stride as well. And extensibility. As this library follows OOPS concepts, we can easily extend and we can inherit the existing methods to create our own functionalities. Yeah, let us explore some applications. Generally, previously I mentioned that it can be used across genomics. In genomics, we all know that every living being is composed of chromosomes. Chromosomes dictate the physical, mental, and biological behavior of any living organism. These chromosomes are composed of mainly 4 nucleotide sequences. Those are adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Here, I took an example of little chromosome. We can consider it as a nucleotide sequence. If we observe this sequence, we may not get quicker insights. However, by using this KitikiPlot, we can convert it into an intuitive visualization so that we can easily understand and get insights. Instead of visualizing raw sequences, if we visualize this visualization using this KitikiPlot, we can actually get good insights. If we keenly observe, we cannot find any adjacent pattern so that A and C coming together. Similarly, in electronics, we are having digital signals. Analog signal seems to be real value. However, the digital signals, they seem to be discrete in nature. Those are 0, 1, 0, 1 sequences. By using this KitikiPlot, we can actually visualize how the pattern is varying. Actually, I consider this data from an IoT device. If we can clearly observe, the orange color bit represents whether the light is detected or not. By using, if we visualize directly these raw sequences, we may not get clear insights. However, by using this KitikiPlot, we can get that we can able to understand and we can uncover the hidden insight. The insight from this graph is there does not exist continuous light detection. We can observe many fluctuations. Similarly, in air quality monitoring, this data I took from Kaggle dataset regarding carbon monoxide levels. If we keenly observe, we can find around 9 AM the pollutant level seems to be very high because of increased human activity also. In this way, this KitikiPlot library can be used across various research purposes as well as our daily tasks. Yeah, this is about KitikiPlot. I look forward receiving contributions from the community. If you are having any ideas on leveraging this KitikiPlot for your domain-specific works, we are ready. We can. Yeah, thank you. If any questions, we are ready.
GitHub URL. Yeah,
I will attach. Yes. Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for time.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it only occurred to me just now when I was listening to you. Did you call it KitikiPlot because Kitiki is window?
Yeah.
It took me way too long to realize it. Kitiki is Telugu for window.
Yeah,
That's a good aha moment.
Yeah. So, how do you actually use the package?
We can
use
pick
specifically?
KitikiPlot.
No. How do you why did you develop the package?
Yeah.
What was your fundamental need?
Yes. Before developing this Python package, actually I am working on another NPM package. Recently we published an NPM package. The name of the package is Visual Gestures. In that package, what we did is generally we are using touchpad to control the cursor. What we did is instead of using the touchpad, we used our hand movements to control the cursor. During the development of the package, I took algorithm development part. So I wanted to propose an innovative algorithm that does not exist before. So I took sliding windows. By using sliding windows, I decided to develop a new algorithm. However, during the algorithm development, what I thought is I need to every time console log the result in the console. So I thought I searched on the web whether any predefined package exists so that I can visualize and develop the algorithm rapidly. But I found none. So I thought like God has given me the best chance to contribute to the community. So and I did it.
Great, yeah, thank you. And again, if it wasn't obvious, this is your first talk.
Yeah, this is my first.
So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
How are you generating the graphics? Like this, graphics are generated, right?
Yeah.
So like OpenGL or D3 or what you use?
Yeah, actually it is a wrapper library built on the top of Matplotlib. All the functionalities existed in Matplotlib. I am leveraging.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after this publication, we published like a research paper in GIS Science Journal as well. It is focusing this. Yeah, we will. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, what journal did you say?
GIS Science Journal.
Did you publish a paper on KitikiPlot?
Yeah, published it.
Okay. I don't know how many people know there is a journal called JOS.
Yeah, Journal of
The
Open
Journal of
Source
Open Source Software. Okay, like there's a few people who know. Okay, more people are also nodding their heads. So I think you should try and like definitely put a paper on JOS. That is for me sort of the established standard for open source packages.
Yeah.
So yeah, great.
In publication, we just search through the web, which is Scopus English. Scopus English is available.
Yeah.
So we as it is my very first publication.
Nice.
Next time.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
You send the WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Top of the frame, or just sending me the video for and then you map those gestures to some action. Sure.
One second. I briefly introduced Sai Krishna before. I think this is, I don't know, his fourth, fifth talk at the meetup. I think me and Sai Krishna need to sit down and then figure out, like, you can't come here more frequently than 3 months. Like, you only have one slot every X amount of time. But it's always a delight for me to hear from Sai Krishna because for me, he's one of the exemplars of focus on the problem. Talk to me about what the problem is, and then let's try and understand. Okay, why is this the one of the solutions for it, and how are you actually going about implementing it? So yeah.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sai Krishna, and one reason why I have to focus on the problem is because I don't know solutions. I'm a mechanical engineer by education. After which I wanted to, like, I actually started working on the problems only. Like, I wanted to change the country. So, started working on public policy first. Then understood that, okay, no, they have to. There's this book written by Pranay and others. Oh, what's the name of
The chip war?
No,
The graphic novel?
policy.
The graphic novel?
Not the graphic novel.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, anyways, I'll just so they wrote one problem of Indian state in that book is that it is highly aspirational, but doesn't have enough strength to meet those aspirations. So wants to do a lot of things, but doesn't actually have the capacity to do a lot of things. And that book acted as a self-help book for me because like I felt I'm doing the same thing. I wanted to do a lot of things, but I didn't have enough capacity to do a lot of those things. So then I started learning. Like for me, easier things to learn was technology actually because you have Google now, you have AI also, so it's easier to learn these things and try to find few solutions to those problems which I spent a lot of time on. One of that problems is again like I used to be this keyboard warrior on Twitter. I used to do a lot of fighting with people about constitution, like if there was secularism on Twitter, you will find people fighting with you, etc. And I used to be that fighter, and it affected my mental health also. So then I thought, okay, let me now that I learned some technology, I use some of these tools to fight on my behalf. And why such interest on constitution and literacy, etc. Again, like I was showing this model to, I was at Hyderabad Literary Fest recently. I was showing this to a few of the people there, and they were asking me, why are you doing this? I don't have reasons why I'm doing this for a lot of things. So for this is what I generally say. Just imagine playing a gully cricket without knowing the rules of the game. It is mess. You hit a ball to a six, it will go into a window, and they'll say you're actually out. It's not a six. And one window is for four, other window is a sixer. And without knowing which window is a sixer, you can't really play a fair game. So, that is as simple as an example for me to work on this project. And again, I'm not doing this project. It's not main thing for me. I get reminded of this project every Republic Day. 1 week before Republic Day, like I get 10 settlement, this Republic Day I'm not doing anything. Then I try to do something for that 1-2 weeks, and like that's how it has been for the last 3 years. Again, I thought engineers in general, like in India, the constitution, we don't read much, and I think we should read. Again, just we are reading a lot of things anyway, so can read with it. So I met a couple of interesting people in this last 3 years, and I'm doing this project every Republic Day. First, there's one project called Reclaim Constitution by Vinay. You can just, it's reclaimconstitution.in. He fills a lot of postcards related to the Constitution, merchandise, etc. He also does something called Print Your Preamble. He's famous on Twitter also. Yeah, his handle is Bhavdari. And he designed that frame where you and he has that frame in multiple languages. He once brought it to Hyderabad in Telugu and Urdu. Uh, and we did one such event called Print Your Preamble. I'll just show what.
You know the control tab?
Yes. No, yeah, no. Sure. So that's what this small frame. We ask people to print their own preambles. Just what we observed is that people try to build some ownership over the document when they print it with their own hands and. Should I wait?
You said describe it.
Yeah. So yeah, people feel some ownership over the document when they print it with their own hands and work with it. Like many of them took it to their home and I hope they photo frame or something. But yeah, so that is one project we do on occasions, Republic Day, Ambedkar Jayanti, and many such occasions where we print those preambles and give it to people.
When is the next event?
Uh, I think there's one on 30th February. Like there's some college is doing it in Hyderabad.
30th February.
Sorry, 30th March. And 30th March. Some college is doing it. I will say.
It's coming up.
Yeah.
Aha. Yeah, I don't have an X account.
You can put cancel, xcancel.com and the stream to work. Okay. Just x instead of x.com, put xcancel.com. Same level. Just xcancel.com. CAX.
Really?
It works.
Okay. Yeah, so this was my Twitter thing I had to do. So this is my friend who is a civil judge who wants to be anonymous on this because he should not be doing this publicly. So we just curated a lot of tweets from the Constituent Assembly debates, which we thought better to be in much more public knowledge, especially on social media. And the idea was like, so every hour this bot just keeps tweeting those things, and we thought someone will take it and fight all these things, and we don't have to be in those fights directly. That's our way of dealing with our mental health issues. But like again, this was just a project we did like 2 years ago. We were curating a lot of things. We put them on Google Sheet, and back then just deployed this on Heroku. I think that was the free cloud server back then. So we deployed it on that, and it used to do its job. And then Heroku was not there. So then I actually did the same thing as Sreekar did. I I got a Raspberry Pi, and now this bot is housed on that Raspberry Pi. And it is doing its job. Like I hardly look into it, but again, we wanted to do something more than what what this Twitter bot can do, and also I also wanted to learn a bit about. And everyone was talking about AI models, Gen AI, etc. I just wanted to learn a bit of it, and I thought because I have some exposure to the Constitution Assembly debates data, I wanted to work more on that to build this model as well. So that was my not an AI engineer per se, so I don't know much about it, but based on whatever I learned on the internet, this is what I did. So I had the Constitution Assembly debates data. The data was provided by this Professor Shivakumar Jala from James University, and he has another student with him. So they cleaned the data in an Excel sheet, and he gave me that data. Then I had to make a vector, like create a vector store of it, basically using the word embeddings. I one mistake I did was again I wanted to use open source models, so I used like again like Llama model. I downloaded it on my laptop, and I initially worked with that. But then I understood while deploying. What I did, I first took the data set and then used the Llama word embeddings to uh, uh, vectorize the data. But when I later deployed it, I was not able to use the same embeddings model when I deployed because I deployed it on Streamlit, and I felt it easier to do that there. But when I deployed it, I couldn't use the Llama word embeddings anymore. So then I had to change everything. Then I used I found that on Hugging Face that model work is.
Was it simpler to switch the model and just use it, or did you have to go through an extra steps to change that embedding model?
No extra actually working with it's just changing the model. That's it. Yeah. Initially it was
The
a.
results were almost the same.
I think Llama was better, but this model I think it is a 786 dimensional vector. I think Llama model is bigger than that. I forgot the.
You have to tune the embeddings later on, or say you just use the default parameter?
I use the default. I'm like I want to know what all I can do as well. So I did the embeddings and I saved that file as a SQLite file, and that I uploaded onto the Streamlit cloud. Space was like it came around 200 MB with whatever configuration I took, number of documents and all. So that 200 MB I was able to push it to the Streamlit cloud, and then created prompt template. Again, I used a very simple prompt template based on what I did. Just answer based on the context given. That was my prompt template. I didn't experiment much over there. And a retrieval chain, again, there was a lot of hypertuning I could do in retrieval chain. There were methods like MMR, similarity search, etc. So I use MMR because again, this did a few trial and error, and I felt that whatever I could give reasonable answers to the queries. And LLM model, two models work fine. Again, I just used free Hugging Face API so far. So for that, Mistral and Google Gemma. I think both of those models work well. I wanted to use the DeepSeek models, but like if people ask me to actually use DeepSeek models and all, but I think it is heavy. Like it is more than the least one I found on Hugging Face is close to 13 GB, and the free Hugging Face thing was only allowing me to use a model less than 10 GB. Something again, I don't know exactly what those things are, and then I deployed it on Streamlit. Uh, Before I show that, I'll just like, okay, maybe I'll just show it first. So yeah, the way it works right now is like I have some queries again. People, I can actually see what queries people ask on Langsmith because I use Langsmith to write the retrieval chain completely. So few interesting queries I found. I just wrote it as default prompt. But if people want to ask their own prompt, they can ask. Rahul, do you want to ask?
Uh, I don't know, man.
Work mostly
Who are the key figures involved in, like, who prominently show up in the list? So the inference is working on Streamlit with the secret database. You can zoom in.
I restricted the response to 1,000 characters. So maybe that. And also just based on the text data. So I think because of that, Ambedkar's name is not in the text data pool. It is the speaker. And everyone refers to that. So, yeah, it's here right now. And yeah, I just want to know what all I can do also about this. A few like some feedback and that I got when I shared. This is one again. I just like I have to supposedly break the original data set into so it's a number of documents. I just chose it randomly because I didn't know what is the optimum numbers for that. I think I chose some 1,000 characters as the document size because each speech, I could also do like each paragraph of each other document. That was one option. But again, I just went with what people on internet were generally choosing as the default document size. So that is like optimum number of channels. And as you were saying, like how to do a better embedding, I'm not very sure. I just use the default model and use that for the embedding. Better prompt template because sometimes I've seen answers not so great responses. So is there a way to write a better template? And a few people have asked, I think Perplexity does this, where when you ask a question, it also gives a
DeepSeek as one of the models.
it gives context and links as part of the response.
Yeah.
So if people ask if I can give a paragraph number or something of that sort, that would be helpful. if you want to use that later on. Like I think latency currently is on an average around 10 seconds. Is there a way to reduce it? Like I know if I purchase models and all, I'll be able to do it, but with whatever I have, can I do something about it? DeepSeek is one, and then obviously now right now it's a single query, but I have to make it a conversational one. But I think I can do it with some interface. So yeah, that's no.
So for DeepSeek, if I'm not wrong, there's this thing called Voila, right?
That you can run locally.
That only
you
can run
locally,
locally.
and the smallest I saw, I mean, I was just trying DeepSeek for something else, and I think the smallest is 3 GB if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
The smallest DeepSeek model, it's obviously like a, if DeepSeek has 6 packs, it has 2 packs. It's basically like, you know, less muscular, but it is DeepSeek. So if the size,
I need a cloud endpoint.
I don't think you need to worry about DeepSeek anymore because Gemini and Google recently put out a model, I think yesterday or day before, which is smaller and has reasonably good performance and is also, if I'm not wrong,
it's cheaper,
as open source and it is cheaper.
very cheap.
Yeah, in terms of actual inference. So yeah, I would probably like check out one of those things. I think you can choose a much newer embedding model than FP9. There's a lot of better newer embedding models. Hugging Face actually has a lot of literature which compares multiple different embedding models and how well they perform.
Okay.
So I can try and dig up one of those articles and then share that with you. It's a pretty
one problem is again, I initially used one embedding model. It was giving me close to 2 GB data. Like the initial constant assembly debate data is just 10 MB. This embedding model gave me a 200 MB SQLite file. Yeah, so I initially used another embedding model on Hugging Face. It was running and like my estimate was that embedding would take place for some 2-3 days, and then the Republic Day would pass off. And then like I'll use something smaller there, and because it was also giving me a huge file in that case. So then I thought, okay, this was working faster. And for now, I use this.
But the thing is, once the embeddings are done, it's a done deal.
Yes, but I have to upload on Streamlit
currently, and it's a free Streamlit.
Like currently, everything is free. I'm not spending anything on the site.
And everything is based on open source software, just to make it clear. But can you go back? Like I'm surprised that you put the embeddings into a SQLite database. I think there are much better vector databases which will probably perform better as well because SQLite is I'm just surprised to see SQLite there. It makes sense just because you'll just spit out a single thing and you can just upload that blob as it is.
I think these are recent developments that SQLite and Postgres is to have plugins.
But PG vector I know, SQLite vector I didn't know. I didn't know SQLite.
Very recent, and there's this company called Turso. So Turso
They're rewriting it in Rust.
Yeah. So this is actually a libsql is this version that is forked from SQLite.
Yeah.
And then for libsql they're adding this vector capability. So most probably this SQLite file is
Actually has the vector capability.
So there is this Chroma DB something I use, and I just added one line something called persist directory, and then it just saves the embedding file as well as
You can also use something called as Buildbus. That's also open source database. So that works really well. ChromaDB, you have Python also would work well. It's not open source, but yeah, I think it should do it.
I think one other problem for him is he can't have a database which is a client server model. You can't say, okay, man, I'll run a database server which is going to have all of these things. SQLite and like blob databases like that are perfect because you don't need it. Like everything runs in memory.
And for the data that we have, like 10 MB data, I think SQLite fits really well in that.
But is it like, trivial to get into a conversational setting? Because that for me is sort of like the very next thing in terms of, okay, I want to know who the key figures are. I want to understand what the key things are that they were pushing for or they were against, and then try and understand how, for example, hey, why are we secular in the first place? Right? Like, why are we like in this way? We weren't. Two things got added later on, so. Yeah, so like why weren't those involved in the original thing? Like were there arguments against those in the original constitutional debates, and then later on like we ended up adding those as amendments to the constitution sort of a thing. I think I don't know if LangChain enables you to easily.
I am not sure.
I think it does.
Actually, chain lit is there.
You have-
Stream lit, we can also use this chain lit. That's not the problem.
Chain lit.
Yeah,
No,
chain
I
lit.
think even on Streamer, I've seen a few people having a
Yeah, in chain lit, we can get predefined templates. We can actually.
chain link.
Yeah, chain lit. It is an extension of stream lit.
Yeah, you can have conversational drag in Lang.
Okay.
It's there. But the documentation, I think 6 months ago was bad of Lang, and I found it good.
Okay.
I think it's good.
It was version like 0 at that point. I think even now it's version 0 if I'm not wrong.
Now it's better.
I'll say like that is on my thing. Like I'll first try to make it a conversational thing.
There is this new thing called an agentic RAG, where, for example, in this case, you are doing RAG on top of the query that the user is submitting, right? So the user is submitting, you are converting that to a vector, and essentially searching in that vector data.
Find the document.
Yeah. But what agentic RAG does is it figures out what to ask, what to actually search in the document.
It interprets for you.
So you can have a really big question, but it will interpret what are the strings that I have to search for in the constitutional database that I have, and then give you an answer, get the things from
Basically, context will be
so it will build its own context and then answer the question based on it.
Okay.
I think that is, I think that should be also done in the pre-plan, but that's somewhere you can probably experiment and see if you're getting
agent RAG.
Agents are the new and fancy thing.
Yeah. It's just a fancy
Yeah.
But
No.
for your prompt part of it, there are a lot of I think good RAG projects or whatever projects where the system prompts and everything. If you just go to their GitHub repo, you can see it like what their system prompt is. You can just copy 3 or 4 and say this is my use case. Generate a good system prompt. ChatGPT just generate.
But one for so generally, again, I have some experience with machine learning and statistics and all. So there at least there is a way to understand what is the right parameter the value. Here, I was not able to understand.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Just go to like the top 4 or 5 repos, see what they're using, and ask ChatGPT to make
No,
one.
he's asking for first principles based.
I don't know. I would have done that. Better prompt template.
No, I was like because I was stuck at these questions because I was not able like.
Yeah, that was just a nearest neighbor kind of approach I was taking for prompt template.
Yeah, it's nearest approximate. Generally, we stay.
Okay,
We
I
stay.
That's
Yeah. This again is pretty interesting to me because I worked on projects and I've seen projects in the past where we were giving RAG models financial reports. We were giving models financial reports of companies, let's say in a particular domain, and the people who were a competitor or who were part of the domain were basically using the RAG model to be able to understand the financial reports of all the other competitors. Instead of actually having to go through everything, you're asking the model to be able to like do meaningful summaries. You're asking it meaningful questions, etc., etc. For example, I think there are people who are doing things of the sort of, let's say, some company. This randomly Stripe came up. So Stripe isn't going to tell you exactly quarter on quarter. Here is how everything sort of our revenues were, our profits were, etc., etc. But they have to show that information in quarterly reports that they submit. So you're just uploading all the quarterly reports, and then you tell the RAG model, you know what, get me information across all these reports for like everything in the previous 4 quarters or 6 quarters, and then show me this information in one specific place. So there are people who are doing similar things, like not at all in any meaningful way, social service sort of a thing. So yeah, this was.
I have a doubt, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But when your data size increases, when you're talking about reports, I'm thinking it's big compared to the constitutional debates.
this is 36 lakh words.
Optimizing on the chunk size, does that provide any value?
I think we were playing around with all the knobs and like.
Just trial and error, right?
Yeah. So no. I think there are some fundamental first principles based things in terms of how big are the sentence sizes that like you're going to pick up, so that maybe you're not breaking something in the middle of a sentence and losing context. So those are some of the things that you're playing around with. It's been a year like since I played around with it, and everything has changed since then. But yeah, that's at least what I remember from back then. We were, I'm sure there are better embedding models as well, like right now. I wish we could get these people at some point. How many people here know about Svecha? Oh, yeah, a decent number of people. Yes. Yep. Raj already briefly introduced himself. He came to us all the way. Him and his wife came all the way from Bangalore to give us this talk. So thank you very much, Raj. Raj is from Stripe, but he's talking about his experience at Flipkart. Coincidentally, this is also Raj's first talk, but he is doing an absolute like deep dive, which I loved getting a preview of. I hope all of you also enjoy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for introducing. Yeah, so I'm Raj. I'm traveling from Bangalore just specifically for this talk and other things visiting our city. Okay, so today we are going to talk about something we developed at Flipkart. Yeah, so this is going to be really technically deep dive. If you guys have any questions, if you need more clarification, please feel free to stop me because there are a lot of slides. Try to rush through the initial part. Okay. I had a couple of questions, the icebreaker, like how many of you use SQL? Not just use, but you manage also your SQL clusters. Anybody here? Okay, you manage your own SQL clusters.
I don't work, but I'm doing my own projects and all small projects because I'm still in the learning stage. So I come from the business background. I stepped into this tech world for like 5-6 months, and I'm doing everything on my
Got it.
resource.
Got it. So not at the production level, but you are doing it for your hobby projects, is it? So you're not doing it for products and use cases, but more majorly you are doing it for your hobby projects, right? Good. Okay, alright. So maybe the next question might not be relevant anymore because a lot of people here are not using your own SQL clusters. But anybody want to take a test, like what would be the major challenges if you are trying to deploy your own SQL clusters and trying to manage them?
So if you're saying SQL cluster, is it different DBs in different or parts of DBs in different parts? Or?
Does it mean starting also come under?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the one part.
So maybe maintaining consistency overall.
Right. Anything else?
I never get the point of that's all from different media and do some logs where they use like share the database. I think it's a really hard process. I think motion, I think couple of months motion this enhancing the performance and
Got it. So starting is absolutely one part.
Scaling?
Yeah, scaling is also another part.
Concurrency also, right? So if I'm adding to one table and one guy is deleting at the table at the same time, not a problem.
That's not in terms of managing your SQL cluster. That's more of your concurrency logging on your application side. But the answer I wanted was basically again, sharding is also something I would say it's application logic rather than managing your SQL cluster. But yeah, it could fall on both the sides. But the answer I was looking for was majorly on the maintenance, right? So one part is like how do you manage your SQL clusters? How do you perform a lot of the maintenances which are really common, right? So today's talk is more about like behind the scene how we automated our plant maintenance journey at Flipkart, and this was specifically for TiDB. So TiDB I'll cover a bit of overview, but it's a SQL compatible distributed data store. So let's get started. So the agenda of the talk would be like overview of the database state, then we'll talk briefly about the overview of scale, then we would take overview of maintenances we had, how do we used to handle those maintenances previous to this automation, then what are the challenges with those, little bit of overview of TiDB, and what are the options we explored to possibly solve these challenges. And at the end, we will talk about how did we solve the entire automated maintenance engine. So let's get started. Yeah, I'm Raj. Brief intro about myself. I work as a software engineer at Stripe. I joined Stripe 4 months back. Before that, I was working at Flipkart. And previous to that, a couple of companies like T-Mobile, Tech, and Boddu. Total of 8+ years of experience. I worked on different tech stack. I started with mobile and backend, front end. Last 3 years, I've been specifically working on platform engineering. On DBus, which are specifically SQL based. So started with playing vanilla MySQL, worked on a MySQL, then I was working on TiDB, then recently I'm working on Postgres. Yeah, and recently I was declared as TiDB champion, and yeah, last but not the least, I'm first time speaker as well. So let's start with the database fleet overview. So Flipkart believed in deploying everything, the infrastructure part, at least on the Kubernetes. So not only just the services, but we also wanted our databases to be on the KIS. So we chose TiDB specifically for that purpose. That TiDB was really compatible. It's open source database, and they had first-class support for Kubernetes. So there was a one reason in the Flipkart cloud. Specifically, Flipkart was using its own private cloud. Maybe some of the talks previously highlighted that by user to use public clouds. There are good reasons, but availability is not just a concern. The second major concern is the cost as well. So large companies, you might be seeing like a lot of the companies starting managing their own clouds, right? So Flipkart used to manage their own private cloud, and this cloud specifically did not support ZDP. ZDP is nothing but zero downtime paging. Which is more of like a lot of the maintenances they are doing, those will not affect any of the software layer. Specifically because Flipkart was not at that scale, this was not solved for. And Flipkart cloud was using mixed storage. When I say mixed storage, it was majorly on the disk side. So we were using a lot of the different disks, like some of them are mentioned here, like JBoard, ABS, NAS, local PV. All of these things. So too much context is not required, but let's say JBoard and local PV are locally attached disks. They are not network separate. So basically, your computer and your disk are really attached via some wires, and one of those goes down, you cannot connect it from anywhere other than that particular server. Yeah, significant of this fleet was using local PV. Local PV is nothing but local SSDs, which are again attached directly to your compute. The reason behind this was to get a very higher performance, because whenever you do a network segregation, there is obviously going to be network latency on your each query when you access your disk. If you talk about the scale part, so Flipkart used, Flipkart at a very large scale. Flipkart was really important on the SQL part, but TiDB was being a new product at Flipkart. We were only having 1 petabytes of total storage, and this was exponentially growing. So by the time it could have grown to maybe 2 petabytes, I'm not sure. And we were managing 100 TiDB clusters at that time, and there were approximately 3,000 Kubernetes pods. 3,000 stateful pods, not the stateless pods.
Of TiDB.
Yeah, so TiDB has multiple components. We will briefly cover those. So out of them, like some of them are stateless, some of them are stateful. So 3,000 were stateful pods. Stateful is nothing but like there is actually disk attached to that. And all of maintenances are like maintenance is good happen due to multiple reasons. Like some of them are extremely like OS upgrades. Then you might have deleted this, deleted CPU, memory, etc. And always unexpected failure can happen anywhere, public cloud, be private cloud. So if we try to categorize this maintenances into two domains or two buckets, we can say one are like unscheduled, which are like can happen to anywhere, anytime, and the second was scheduled, right? The scheduled is somewhere like you because you control your own data center, so basically things like upgrade degraded disk or something, where your disk is not down, but it is not performing as I mean, it should be performing at a very high throughput, but now it is not performing at that scale. So in such cases, what happens is like DCT informs every software library that we are going to take down this disk for maintenance. So these are something like scheduled maintenances where they give us a prior notice that on this date, on this time, this will go for maintenance. And if you categorize further scheduled maintenances into two parts, then you can say destructive and downtime. Destructive is basically when they feel that after maintenance they won't be able to recover that part. Then they say basically this node or whatever they're taking out, let's say disk or something, this will be completely destroyed after the maintenance. And downtime is something where they say like this specific hardware will be down for certain duration, and then it will come back and will be addressed back to your clusters. So if you see this part, right? So how do we handle the maintenance? So as I mentioned, like the unexpected failure can happen to anybody, anytime, anywhere. So these are generally solved by the official operators and official whatever you're using, right? Databases or anything. So if we talk about TiDB also, like TiDB operator comes with the handling of unexpected failures, but scheduled maintenance was something specific to Flipkart, so the support was not there. So basically we had to build some support or automation around that. So majority of the problem was because of the scheduled maintenance, and we need to move out these ports before the scheduled maintenance starts on those nodes, right? So anybody want to take a guess why? No, it's okay. So there are two reasons basically. One is like majority of the TiDB fleet uses Raft forum. So where like there are three nodes or three replica for everything, and then they connect with the majority of forum on the Raft side, right? So let's say one node which is there is a spinning wheel is under maintenance, and because this is a scheduled maintenance, we knew about this node being down. At the same time, one node goes for unexpected failure, right? If this happens, what happens is like there is only one replica now alive, and then you cannot recover back from there. Your forum is lost and your database will be down. And being at such a large scale, Flipkart cannot tolerate even like few seconds of downtime, right? It requires like 5, 6, 9 availabilities. So this was one of the reasons, and the second reason is like, as I mentioned, like we were using local PV for a majority of our fleet. And when we say local PV, like because the computer and storage are attached to the same node, you cannot spawn another compute somewhere else on some other server and connect it to the same disk, right? So here this layer, the scheduling logic was that whenever such local PV port goes down, you try to bring that on the same node. But now that node is gone, right? So you cannot create another compute on that. So there was another problem. So the port will start on the pending state. So these were the two problems why we should handle the scheduled maintenance, and why should we proactively move out of those nodes in a safe manner. And if I talk about the problem with maintenance, it's like for each stateful port, if anybody tries to run the steps to move out from that node, it used to take 1 hour on call bandwidth, right? And these were manual steps, so there is always chance to and always chance to do some errors, and which can lead to again some downtime, which cannot be tolerable. And yeah, there was a multi-step run which was there for on-calls to run, and on-calls because it's a human process, anybody can make mistakes. So yeah, on-calls were like helping this. Now we can go a little bit about overview of TiDB just to make you guys aware about what it is. So TiDB is nothing but it's a SQL compatible distributed HDF compatible data store. It's open source again. And there are 3 main components to use.
Can you talk about what HDAP is?
Yeah, HDAP is a hybrid transaction and analytical protocol. So generally there are like OLTP and OLFP workloads. Right? So OLTP is nothing but your transactional use case where you work on a raw basis, right? And OLF is nothing but your analytical use cases where you want to query by your columns generally, like you try to aggregate and all those things. So TiDB as a data storage supports both the queries and the single database. You don't have to spawn another database for that. And if you want to use TiDB as a SQL compatible data store, there are three main components: TiDB, PD, and TiDB. TiDB, PD is short form for placement driver, and TiDB. TiDB is stateless, PD and TiDB are stateful. Those 3,000 ports were PD and TiDB specifically. And there are two additional components which are optional, which are typeless. And TiCDC typeless is used for making step, used for analytical purpose. And TiCD is obviously as per the name, it is used for the CDC purpose.
What is CDC?
CDC is change data capture. So whenever you want to put a watch on something, right? This is so you can stream some of your changes to somewhere else as a Kafka, and then you probably process and then do something else as well. So all of these components scales horizontally. That's why it's infinite data store. There is no limit to how much data you can store in this. Let's quickly talk about how the query processing works. So there is an application here which uses MySQL protocol. There are no changes required on the application side except for few queries which are not supported. But 99% of more than 99% of queries will be supported as it is TiDB. So there is this is your application which is using MySQL protocol. Then there is a TiDB layer. So if you see there are multiple TiDB ports here, so you can scale them horizontally as per your throughput requirements. And TiDB specifically exposes MySQL via protocol so that your application can connect to them as a MySQL client. And these are stateless layer, and you can do load balancing on top of this. So you can, let's say, least connection algorithm load balancing so that your connections are equally distributed across multiple TiDB ports. Now, when query is TiDB, what TiDB is responsible for is starting the transaction, figuring out where the data is located, and third thing is converts SQL query into distributed SQL API. Okay. So for getting the where the data exists, it has to talk to somewhere, right? So the PD is considered to be a brain of the TiDB architecture. So where it's not only the meta store, but it stores. I mean, it is meta store as well as it does a lot of other things as well. So in terms of meta store, what it does is like it stores real-time data, distribution, and topology structures, and all those things about TiDB. And other things it does is like it basically based on this real-time data, it acts upon that data. Like if it sees some TiDBs are bloated and some are really free, what it does is it sends scheduling commands to redistribute data across TiDBs and all those things. So whenever query reaches TiDB, TiDB has to start a transaction. What it does is to talk to PD. It takes a TSO. So TSO is nothing but timestamp object. It's like you can consider it as a whatever unique or post timestamp you use, right? But TSO is mixture of your physical plus logical timestamp. So it is guaranteed to be unique and every time you query. So in terms of like MySQL uses other transaction IDs and all those things, but TiDB uses TSO as the transaction ID. And the second part, if you see like TiDB talks to PD for data location, where the data is located, where my query is interested into, right? Once TiDB receives this information, it converts this SQL query into distributed SQL API, and then it talks to TiDB, wherever the data is there, right? So if TiDB knows that the data is on the TiDB 4 or 5, it creates a specific queries for TiDB 4 and 5, and then fires them with this distributed SQL API on TiDB. Now TiDB does come with their own coprocessor. So whatever queries come to TiDB, they process themselves with whatever data they have. Let's say there is a count star query, right? So what TiDB does is now it knows like the data is between shared between TiDB 4 and 5, let's say. Then TiDB sends this count star query for TiDB 4 and 5 both. Now TiDB 4 does aggregation only for the data which TiDB 4 is, and TiDB 5 does the aggregation for TiDB 5, and then they report back to TiDB. And now TiDB knows I need to merge both the results, so it does the aggregation part again, and then it runs that back to the client. So So TiDB, as I mentioned, like there's again the aggregation layer. So TiDB works in the push down approach, where majority of the processing is pushed down to the TiDB, where the storage is actually there. And TiDB again is to talk to PD to confirm the metadata again that the queries which are coming to them, they are actually the leaders for that region. And this is the storage architecture. So as I mentioned, like TiDB gets some of the calls from the client. Client is no one but your TiDB layer, and then TiDB understands only the gRPC. So the distributed API, whatever distributed SQL conversion happens, TiDB calls TiDB via gRPC. And then if you are seeing here, there are some bunch of colored regions that are marked here, right? So and another thing, if you notice, like there are three replicas of each of the regions. So region is nothing but a smallest data chunk on TiDB, which is generally of 96 megabytes. And in one TiDB, it can host multiple of these regions, right? So this is where your actual data is located, right? So I have just taken example here. Maybe it's not really visible, but so let's say these are stored as a key value pair on the TiDB because TiDB uses proxy internally. So if you see there are keys, right? So 10 name Raj something, 192 name Tom something, right? So these are the data stored in this one region, and that is also replicated across multiple TiDBs. And these three replicas form a raft, again majority for consistency purpose. Okay. So yeah. So based on this, does anyone want to take guess like which are the two most critical components in this architecture which requires most high availability guarantees? So we talked about the major components TiDB, PD, and TiDB.
PD.
Okay.
PD and KB.
Yeah, so that's true. Like TiDB and PD. Interesting thing about PD is because it's a meta store, we can recreate it, but there exists one runbook on the TiDB official site itself, but it takes really a lot of time. Like it takes at least 30 minutes to recover that PD, and which is again not acceptable downtime. So it becomes a candidate for being a high availability component, and that's why we had to build some of the solution to make these components alive, available at all the time, right? And that's why we had to go for a solution. So by the time it was, when we were discussing this part, it was evident that we had to solve this in an automated manner. We explored some of the options which are listed down here. So we started with very basic things like this, like a script. Second one was let's build KTS code, let's build a KTS operator and embedding control loop inside controller service. So we evaluated these options on bunch of criteria, but in any case, like what was the who was the winner of this exercise?
Operator.
Yeah, obvious one. So it was KTS operator. So why KTS operator? This is the reason, like I mentioned, like we evaluated different options in based on these 5 criteria. So native Kubernetes integration was the first one because our entire TiDB was deployed on the KTS. We wanted some solution because native Kubernetes and because KTS operators build, they actually are there on the KTS only. So it was a very perfect choice for us to be as a native Kubernetes integration. The second one was control loop capabilities because KTS operators are built on top of controller runtime, which comes with its own control loop capabilities, and KTS itself uses this operator framework inside, or you can say the basic, which is the controller runtime inside their own controller capabilities. So whenever you deploy stateful set, it has to use that controller. Fault tolerant design is because they work on. So whenever one port dies, let's say in the operator, they can another port can come up and start the job from where it left. So yeah.
So, like, let's say you're halfway through migration and the migration service itself goes down, a new thing will pop up and will restart from where Oh, so it somehow is able to save the state and then is able to restore state and then like use it in the new pod?
Yeah, you are on the right track. This is not for exactly migration because migration is handled within PD. Like PD knows what is the data distribution and where it has to move the things. This is more of like it has to issue the command to PD that you have to start moving out of the data, and then basically the rest of the part is taken care by PD. But yeah, you were right. Like we have to save the state, and then like if one port goes down, another one can come up and start from the last saved state. Then high availability, like you can again scale this horizontally. You can deploy multiple code and then ensure high availability is there and accessibility through other device model. Device is nothing but DB as a service. There are multiple databases as a service that prefer not only on SQL but on other things as well, documents and other stuff. So KDS operator works on a very basic architecture fundamental. So there is a operator here at the down, right, which is always there, and it puts a both on custom resources. Custom resource is nothing but you define one YAML, like you want to deploy stateful set or something, right? So that's a resource defined by KDS, but then you can have your own resource, which is custom resource. So there's a custom resource. The operator watches that custom resource. Now user comes in, it tries to create or modify that custom resource. Then what happens is like because of the watch, operator gets a change event, and then operator knows like something has changed and I need to reconcile that resource to get it to the like intended state. So it checks like what is there on the Kubernetes by its APIs, and then it adjusts those states on the Kubernetes API. So this is very basic architecture. Yeah, and now because it was the KDS operator was finalized, how we started building was like we wanted to keep this thing simple because as I mentioned, like we were getting 9 to 10 maintenances per week, 9 to 10 ports we were to handle per week. So it wasn't very large scale operation, but it was still obvious that because it involves very critical steps, we have to build a strong automated operation. But then we wanted to keep things simple as well, so we started using operator SDK, which extracts out a lot of the building blocks and those kind of things, right? So we started with the operator SDK where we have to just define one CRD and then it gives a reconcile method where we have to just implement our logic. So we defined a very simple CRD again. We took a PVC name and the schedule time, that's it, nothing else. And based on the scheduling logic, reconciler will automate the series of a lot of the manual steps. So what were the manual steps we used to take before and the steps which were automated by this operator was? So in case of PD, we have to check whether it's a leader or not. Yeah. So when you so in rough core there is one leader, right? So you check whether the PD is leader or not, and if it is a leader, then you make it design so that another leader will come out. Then you scale out the PD, obviously because there are 3 replicas. Like even if you make a mistake, like there will be 2 pods down at a time. But if you have 5 pods, then you are still having 3 pods alive, so you can continue your operations. Then delete a member. This is just because it uses internally at city, so you delete that member. Then you delete the pod and PVC, so new pod and PVC can come up, and then you just verify that a new pod is joined that cluster. So these are some comments. I'm going to just keep all those things. Similarly, like for type A and type plus, you start with scaling out. So that here the reason is a bit different because now if one type A pod is down, the rest of the type A has to take the load which was handled by this type A which is going to be down. So that's why you create one more type A so that the load is still distributed equally. Then you delete the store, which is like issuing a command to PD to start moving out your data from that type A. And then you wait for rebalancing. PD and type A internally will work to redistribute the data. And until like this is finished, you cannot do anything. But once this is finished, you will delete port PVC and then you re-verify the new port is created and join the cluster, right? And then you scaling whatever you had scaled out earlier. So this is the CRD I was talking about. We created a very simple CRD, so you just see PVC name and the start time of the maintenance. So based on the start time, you can put a logic around like when to start the maintenance because the start time could be of let's say 1 week advance notice, right? But you don't want to start right away because there is a chance to the maintenance can get cancelled as well better. So we start like let's say 24 hours before only stick time and previous name obviously to identify for which disk is going to go down. And then these are some of the roadblocks we had, but we found easier solutions for them. So one was like we had to use TiDB cluster CRD, which is defined by TiDB operator in our reconciliation method. So either one way was to like just copy paste entire thing, but then like whenever TiDB changes something, we had to again resync those things. So rather we decided to just import them. And when you import some other third-party resource definition, you have to register them to your manager class like this. And the second thing was data election, like because of the HA, we were deploying multiple ports, but we didn't want everyone to take action on the thing. So we wanted only one of the port to be active at the time. So we implemented this basic data election, which is there in the operator framework. So you just say reader.become. So this method blocks that thread until it gets a reader release. The next thing was identifying the TiDB cluster from BBC. So we were getting only the BBC name. How do we get like the TiDB cluster name? One is like you do the string manipulation from the BBC name, but there is not always obvious, and it could lead to some error. So, but then interesting thing was like when we described the BBC itself, we saw like there were two levels, like one was component and one is instance, and these were actually added by the TiDB operator itself. So this was really easy after this because like we can just grab these two levels from BBC and then we can just with the TiDB cluster and we can just get the TiDB cluster itself. Now the important thing was like we had to connect with PD to issue that delete command on PD, right? When we had to inform PD that we need to start more some of the regions from particular TiDB. So this is where like we had to connect with PD. And PD client itself takes a lot of variables which are defined in TiDB cluster CRD, and this will become complex because whenever TiDB changes something, we will end up changing our logic as well. So again, here also what we did was like we just pulled the logic from the TiDB operator itself, and we used the client method there, and we just passed the TiDB cluster entirely to that client, and then we were getting the PD client. Concurrency is an interesting thing, like while majority of the scalable systems would solve this, but as I mentioned, we were only using 9 to 10 ports per week, so we were not required to handle such multiple maintenance in concurrent way. We just thought like that's pretty easy, so just make them sequential, and how did we make them sequential is like each maintenance when they start, they take a lock on that TiDB cluster, and how we take a lock on cluster was that we will attach to two of these annotations on the TiDB cluster CRD. It's not our maintenance CRD, but it's actually the TiDB cluster CRD. And how the HCD works is on the optimistic concurrency control (OCC) manner, right? So whenever there are two threads trying to save something, then what it takes is like it takes like when you read the data, what was the hash of that value, and then whenever you are saving, whether that initial hash you saw is the current hash or not. If that has changed, it will not allow you. So the first writer wins. The second writer, when it tries to write it, it will say like somebody else has changed your data, so you cannot save. So this is how like we were able to solve the concurrency, and this was basic for snippet. I think we can focus only the highlighted type. So the first is like whenever any maintenance comes here, it tries to lock the TiDB cluster. If you get error, we check like whether that was a conflicting error. So if there is a conflicting error, then it means like some other maintenance of the TiDB cluster by that time. So then what we do is like we just review that reconciliation after 5 minutes again to check whether the resource is free or not. So after this, our TiDB operator was built, and TiDB maintenance operator was built, and then we used it on the production for a couple of weeks. And results were quite amazing. Like within a few weeks, we were able to save 200 plus on-call hours, and there was zero incident reported while the maintenance operator took care of these things. So yeah, some of the key learnings we had building this operator was the reconciliation queue doesn't come with its own redo project. So you have to be extra careful while you do that requeue part, that or you save some of the state back to your CRD, right? So whenever you save your state, it will get as by default input because there is a change event again, and operator will again get to invoke. And if you requeue again at the same time, there will be two reconciliations coming in for the same resource. So you have to be extra careful because there is no reload logic on the reconciliation tool. Second part is like reconciliation unit. I mean, reconciler should do only the unit of work. It should not do any async job. So even though there is async job, it should start that job, mark the state like I've started the job, and requeue for 5 minutes or any time which is suitable for your use case. Then whenever the next reconciliation comes, you check the state like I have started this job, whether it is finished or not. I'll just check whether it is. I mean, if it is finished, start with the next step. If it's not finished, again go back and first requeue for that certain duration. So reconciliations should only do unit of work in sync and never wait for any other operation to finish. And yeah, make a reconciler actions item important because due to any reason, multiple reconciliation can happen for the same resource. And there is an interesting thing on operator SDK and all those things like one is like whenever changes happen, you get the watch event, but then there is a resync period also. Where what it does is like because sometimes you can miss watch events as well in the watch page architecture. So what it does is like after resync period, it tries to pull the entire state again from the XCD, and then again it will call update method of your reconciler. So that way again reconciler will get invoked even if there are no changes in your intent. So if actions are not item important, you can end up into a really bad state. Yeah, these are some of the references. So TiDB is developed by ThinkTech, so there's a website if you want to go for operator framework. I have included TiDB and Flipkart. And yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
I think idempotence is a very important concept. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why I was asking the question about the operator will come back and then restart from where the previous pod crashed. What other reconciler is another place where idempotence is important, but any other places where it wasn't obvious where idempotence you'd have to build an idempotence system.
Nothing top of my mind right now, but yeah, reconciler was the one really good test where we had to implement this because it can be multiple times, but then you want to have the same result.
This is a tangential TiDB question. So TiDB is basically built on top of this other RocksDB, and RocksDB is also by the TiDB, the pink cap folks.
RocksDB is by Meta.
Okay.
That's again open source software.
Okay.
But it's only key value pair. So what TiDB has done is they built on top of key value store and they try to make it a SQL compatible.
So TiDB's key functionality is to be able to take the standard SQL queries and then handle them as distributed SQL queries with this architecture of the DB to be able to do the distributed SQLs, the PD for the metadata, and then the KB, which is basically wrapping around the RocksDB, right?
Yeah.
And everything is running on top of native K8s, which is where they are coming in. RocksDB does not support any of that.
RocksDB also can be deployed on K8s, but what they have done is TiDB is coming, and TiDB internally uses RocksDB to store the data as a key value pair. And each TiDB comes with two RocksDB instances. One is to store the actual data. Second one is to store the call logs, write logs. Yeah. And there is TiDB again. So this is the storage part, and then I talk about coprocessor, which is to push down. Generally, if you might have seen DSPy, which is coming from AWS as well. So what they guys, they also realize is push down approach always works well because your storage and you are literally reducing your I/O operations, right? Because you're processing where your storage is. So that's why TiDB also follows the same process. There is a coprocessor which can process the whatever queries coming in for the data what it has, where it has the receipt.
And it more or less basically takes a database and then says, no, I'll split it into a bunch of key value pairs and then put them in the key value store.
Yeah.
Instead of actually storing it as the usual table database
structure. So whatever we are talking about starting and all those things, all of these things are automatically handled here. So you don't have to start your database if you are using TiDB. If there are no questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Raj. Thank you for making all the way over here. So just a brief comment before like we break for snacks. The session also was made thanks to Hasgeek. So Hasgeek wanted to organize a mini RootConf conference in Hyderabad. It was supposed to happen next weekend, but then they didn't get enough interest in the conference itself. Raj had submitted a talk for the RootConf mini conference, and Zainab and the folks at Hasgeek said, hey, look, you know what, like we want to try and kickstart a community which is interested in distributed and scalable systems and building resilient systems in Hyderabad. So yeah, like we talked it out, and then we said, yeah, you know what, like if Raj is comfortable, we would love to have him here. At the end of the day, like he's building systems out of open source software. So yeah, hopefully we'll have like a few more crossover sessions between folks who are in the Hasgeek community or trying to talk about building scalable resilient systems using open source software, and like have them at the FOSS United Hyderabad meetups. Let's take a break and then we come back to wrap up with Prathamesh's session.
not because we expect people to join online, but just because we want all the speakers to have an easy way to be able to go back and say, yeah, like I actually gave a talk. Here is proof that I gave a talk on this YouTube live stream. We also share it back with like everyone.
Hey guys, I'm Prathamesh. So we're going to look at this really interesting topic, which is open source LLMs, or like any LLMs for the matter, deserve code and not prompts. Okay? So how many over here have worked on LLMs, built LLM applications? Okay, okay, fine. So have you all written manually prompts? Yes. Or did you use ChatGPT, write a prompt for both? Yes. Okay, fine. So here's the thing: that 9 to 3 prompt engineering course will be useless after you start using this, right? DSPy. Yeah. So it's going to be on a framework called as DSPy. So also known as Declarative Self-Improving Python, developed at Stanford, and it's completely open source. Okay. A brief introduction about me: I'm a third-year CSE student from CS University, Bangalore. I've been working in ML space for quite a bit. I've taught deep learning for a class of 35 for a month. And yeah, so we're in research for quite a bit. So let's jump directly into the topic. So when we mentioned about prompting techniques, so there are quite a few that industry uses right now. These are quite a few: zero shot, few shot, chain of thought, tree of thought, and now something exists called as graph of thought, and something called as react. So that is reasoning and acting, right? So zero shot essentially refers to where us as college students just copy paste assignment and put it in ChatGPT. So we're not giving it any context. Few shot comes into play where you're giving a simple example and you're telling GPT or any LLM for the matter that this is one example. Try to use that and understanding and give me that solution. Chain of thought is where you add more reasoning to it, and same goes with tree of thought. So essentially, I'm not telling all of these prompting techniques are bad, right? So, but when we write it manually, we are, having a tendency to have a manual error, right? So, first thing is you have inconsistent results. Yeah.
Sorry for breaking the flow.
Yeah, no.
But what's the difference between chain of thought and tree of thought?
So chain of thought is where, assuming that I want to solve a mathematical problem. So I will give 3 examples, right? So first thing is, let's say I have an array of few numbers and I want those odd numbers from this array. So I'll be like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my array. 1, 3, 5 is my odd numbers. And if I want to sum out of this, based on this, I wanted to add on this. So I'm going to give 3 such examples. So essentially, I give my reasoning over here. So that becomes continuous chain of thoughts, process. But when it comes to tree of thought, imagine it as you want to celebrate a party. Now, party could be birthday party or an anniversary party or something like that. Now, in this party, you have different themes, right? So all of those essentially become like one tree. So you're giving reasoning in that format when it comes to tree of thought, right? So yeah. So coming to the point, when we write it manually, you're having a tendency of inconsistent results because the way I can write prompts is way different than like how you can write prompts or like if she writes prompts, right? So and again, when you're actually dealing with this in industry purpose, you cannot deal with such inconsistencies in results, right? And again, when it comes to reasoning, it fails when we write it personally. So here's the thing. So how do we solve this? We use a framework called as DSPy, right? Right. Okay. So coming to what DSPy is, again, to tell you again, it's something called as Declarative Self-Improving Python. It's a framework that's developed by Stanford, just so that you can forget about thinking about prompts and you can start focusing on code. Because as an AI engineer, I think that's more important, right? So also over here, we're treating your LLMs as a device rather than a person whom you want to talk to. So along with the prompts, you also do a bit of fine tuning and change the weights. So depending on those, your prompt essentially changes, right? So this again works like a simple machine learning framework where it starts with a basic prompt to check if that's the actual result that the user wants. based on that, there's a certain loss that's calculated, which I'll get to it, and the prompt again improves it automatically, so that again gets optimized really well, right? So main point is it abstracts the prompts into declarative code-like modules. So just like how NL.module exists in PyTorch, this is very similar for prompt optimization. So you use DSPy over here, right? So yeah, as I said, you can start focusing on the code now and not the prompt because that's not very necessary for us, okay? So the main components that you can see in DSPy are signatures, or as you call parameters in general code language, which generally gets passed into a module. Now these modules are essentially abstractions of all these prompting techniques that I mentioned. And finally, you do something called as a DSPy optimization. These are also called as teleprompters in DSPy. And finally, as always, you need to evaluate the results, right? So moving on to one by one, component by component. So DSPy signature is a simple specification of how your input and output should look like. So in case of the math problem again, so I'd be like, hey, this is the problem, this is the parameters, use this for calculating, give me an integral of this basic question. Rather than that, I can just mention, math question, answer, integer type. That's all. That's how the signatures work like. So you can do it two ways, inline and class based. So inline is essentially where you can just define it in the module itself, and class based is where you want more classes. So assuming that you want to do sentiment analysis, you can just take happy and sad. So 1 and 0. Now if you want to add more emotions like fear, confusion, and everything, you can do it using a class based DSPy signature. So essentially like this. So if I had to take sentiment analysis, so I can just do sentence, give me the sentiment, and I want it to be a Boolean type. So the predict that you see here is something called as a DSPy module. Same way over here, chain of thought is a module itself. So essentially, you don't have to write a chain of thought prompt. This will just write it for you, right? So this is how we do a class based. So I write a sentence over here. Since this was really small, I couldn't add more classes. But you can add joy, I don't know, confusion, fear, happiness. So this is where you can add more custom stuff, right? So finally, you use predict. I want you to predict the emotion, and yeah, so from the sentence. Yeah, so now coming to modules, this is the next part of it. You pass these signatures that you have into the modules. So now what you do is, these modules are essentially the abstraction of all the prompting techniques. So when I mentioned the first, by manually it's bad, but when it's done automatically, you can get really good results out of it. So that's what I mentioned. So you're using that same prompting techniques, but you're just abstracting it in a form that you can just pass in your signature or the work that you want to do, right? So what it does is it enables your learning parameters, which can refine or fine tune. So now the way that this happens is two ways. So when you have a huger model or like a smaller model, so smaller model could be GPA2, that's where fine tuning can be much more efficient. So based on your prompts, it identifies which weights to change so that you're getting the right results. And when it comes to bigger models, it uses something called as a differential prompting. So it runs your prompt first, then it sees the result. Maybe based on the examples and all those trainable examples and example outputs that you have, you get the loss code saying that, oh, this prompt might have not been efficient. So it changes the prompt again and it reiterates. Because fine-tuning such a huge model, it doesn't make sense and it's not very practical as well. So as I said, this is again a very small inspiration from NL.module of PyTorch, right? And it's very generalized if you see these modules. So if you see back, I can pass in like anything over here in predict, or the same case here as well. So I can pass in anything. So I can also pass, sentence and sentiment in chain of thought and be like, okay, what is your reasoning behind, why it is sad or why is it happy? And it actually gives you those results. So now that you have modules, a simple example of here is predict. Again, it's a very straightforward answer. So I've just given a sentence and I've asked it to predict a sentiment, and it gives you a response. If you can try it out in your systems maybe later on, this works and it usually gives one, right? Same way with chain of thought, it gives you a whole answering behind this and also gives you a whole reason behind this. So I had a small demo which maybe I can just give you the GitHub repo of and you can try it out. But
that what that demo does is it analyzes your code, reviews your code, and optimizes the code, and gives you a whole test case. And it, along with that, it gives you a whole reasoning behind why your code is bad and what can be done to optimize. And these are the test cases if you want to verify what code I've written is right. So that's where I've used chain of thought. I have used Olama and a basic Llama 3.2 billion, 3.2, 3 billion version model. So moving on, these are the different other modules which you should be checking out. Something called as React, which is also called as reasoning and acting. So this is actually the most best one I can suggest. It takes a lot of time for inference, but it gives you a really good reasoning. So if it's a problem, it reasons behind the problem, acts like, so if I'm telling act like an agent which does financial analysis, so it gives you the whole reasoning, and it also acts like financial analysis agent, and finally gives you a whole reason like result. So that's why it's better than chain of thought. But again, inference time is a lot. You have majority, which takes like the majority. So out of all the outputs that you get from DSPy module, it picks the one which is best, and that's the output that you get. So multi-chain comparison is essentially comparison of all the outputs that you get from chain of thought and just pick the one. And program of thought is mainly for code gen purposes. Right. So once you have your signature passed in your module, now you want to do something called as an optimization. And DSPy optimizers are also called as teleprompters. So what are these? These are just algorithms which help you tune your parameter. So when I spoke about differential prompting and I also talked about fine tuning, it also comes under this. So the way that in a high level manner, if you look at it, it works like this. So initial prompt is constructed, you have generation of examples of these prompts using these modules, and whatever prompts are not good, it gets rejected using rejection sampling. And finally, depending on which optimizer that you're using, these can happen. So if you're using a Mipro V2 or a multi-modal instruction prompt, something, I forgot the full name, but it's a really good optimizer, and it just takes, it generates a few short examples, and based on that, it selects the best one. So same way, if I go back, this is how the manual works. So we write a static prompt, it goes to LLM, and we get an output, and then we go like, oh, it's bad. This is not the result that I wanted. So you tweak the prompt and it goes back. So now how optimizers do it is that you have a training data, because again, at the end, this is a machine learning framework, right? So you need to have minimum of 5 examples, which is really good. Based on that, you have a program which goes to the optimizer. You get the optimized prompts, goes to LLM, and then there's evaluation process happening again, right? So as I said, this is the high-level working of it. These are the few optimizers that you should check out. So Mipro V2 being one of them. There's Bootstrap RS, which is Bootstrap and Reasoning, which essentially synthesizes a few short examples. So it generates by itself, right? Same way with all of these. So it builds a dataset for these modules and uses them to fine-tune it. So everything runs around with fine-tuning of your weights, or it comes to changing your prompts. And changing of prompts comes with really good examples. Fine-tuning it based on whatever outputs that you get, right? So apart from this, there are much more optimizers that you should be checking out at DSPy.ai. So finally, once you have all of these set up in your pipeline, you need metrics. So now metrics can be as simple as your accuracy score, your F1 score, or if somebody is working on code-based analysis, could be syntactic check, could be semantic check if you're writing stories and stuff. So that is something you can customize, write it as a function, and pass it on in your metrics and evaluation chain. And yeah, coming to applications, you can use it to build RAG, you can use it to build agents, you can build, you name the AI application or LLM application, you can use DSPy there. And yeah, so I think since this was a lightning talk, I prepared a 10-minute slide. So yeah, so if you want to connect with me, this is the Linktree QR code. And yeah, thank you. So if you guys have any questions.
So one question I have is, I've not used DSPy, but a couple of friends of mine have, and they do say that the inference cost is very high with DSPy. Is that true?
Okay, production level, I haven't very often tried it much. So however I've played around it is using Olama itself.
Okay.
And okay, results wise I can tell you it's really good. I'm not very sure about the inference costs. That's something I might have to look up. So yeah.
Do you have any?
Why is the inference cost high?
Because it's running its own program, right? To
Yeah.
make it better.
And that's also understandable, right? Like if you want the LLM to be better, I think you are ending up like getting that cost of okay, fine. Like basically, I ask it one thing, it's gonna run 10 things like internally in terms of 10 different prompts to be able to give me the best result. But I don't know if that is also going to be feeding back into the LLM in terms of hey, look, you know what? Here is the better way of writing the prompt, so that you don't ask like dumb things to DSPy or or something of that sort to try and basically over time reduce how many like additional questions DSPy has to ask, how many additional prompts DSPy has to ask to be able to get to the right prompt.
Yeah, so it depends on that. So as I mentioned, 5 to 10 examples are really good enough for it to verify and change the prompt. So maybe that should reduce the costs. As I said, when it comes to machine learning, again, tons of examples help, but in an optimized manner that you see here is 5 to 10 examples are really good enough for it to perform really well.
Do you have an example where without using DSPy, it's what this is the output I got, and when I use DSPy, it's how much better it was?
I don't have it in my list.
Sure,
but from general view where I work with local LLMs, one application where I worked on was code review and evaluation based agent project. So when we manually use LangChain, wrote prompts for it, assuming that you're a developer, change this for me. It used to spew out random code at times, and we had to tweak that prompt multiple times. So here, once I started optimizing it, using DSPy, the results are relatively better, and
percentage-wise,
I'm not sure, but as I said, if I could push it as a GitHub action, that would possibly work really well, how a maintainer reviews code. So that way, prompt-wise, it's really good. That's something I can vouch for. So that's one of the main examples.
I have a simple question. How difficult will this be to integrate in my existing script? Say I have a small script that just scrapes a website and gives me a summary. Say bloggers and gives me a summary. So I just would you have been given a URL, scrape it and read it and give something like that.
Okay.
So if I want to use DSPy, how difficult will it be to integrate, or how difficult or how easy?
It's not very difficult. So as I said, from the code review project that I spoke about, I think it's just 40 to 50 lines of code, and that includes spaces and tons of comments. So as I said, instead of you writing prompts, you can just be this is the paragraph I have. So instead of you writing question manually here, you can just pass in the PDF or any TXT file or anything that you have. Just go this is the thing that I want, question and answer or any task that you want. This is the response I'm expecting from you, and give me the answer from the response. So it's not very difficult. So as I said, I'll share in my GitHub repo. You can check out a bunch of examples there.
How often would you run this? Is this only initially when you are, for example, to add what he is building? Let's take a simple example of a webpage summarizer. Say I give you any blog link and you give me a summary. That's an easy example. So DSPy fits where I get a good prompt out of it.
Yeah, that's where you go. Yeah, that's where it fits.
The way I'm imagining it is, like, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. The way I'm imagining it is, I'm giving the constitution app to somebody. They have no idea how to prompt, right? They have zero idea how I should go about prompting the constitution app. So that is where I imagine DSPy sort of coming in to be able to say, you know what, I'll take your question, I'll then figure out what the right prompt to ask the actual LLM is.
No, so it's not for users, it's for the developers. So in his case, he might have, I think in LangChain he would have had to write, prompts saying that, assume that he will summarize.
Yes.
So him, instead of writing that, he can just go okay, DSPy or chain of thought, this is the thing that I want. So in his case, it's question and answer. So you can use the same example over here.
You give 4 or 5 examples.
And yeah, it'll directly work for you. So you don't have to do anything. So this is how you can summarize your code to this, just 2 lines of code. Yeah. So it's may not.
The question is a user given one.
Yeah, a user given. So you can also put in your questions here. So if you have a database of TXT files, you can replace it with that. And just be okay, this is what user will be asking. And this is the thought process that I wanted to use. Because the user will be giving you a question, and I wanted to give an answer based on it. And if you want reasoning and all, you can just add it up here itself. So yeah, so that way it works.
Yeah. Is it similar to DeepSeek's GRPO policy for the reasoning part of it?
So as I said, optimizer, there are different ones. I think there's one which uses ORPO. So I'm not sure if it's the Mipro one, but I think there was one optimizer which uses the ORPO ones. So there are new optimizers coming up, so you should check that out. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prathamesh. Was this also your first time?
Yeah, it's the first time.
Yes, I think we're sort of continuing the tradition of last month, and we have like a bunch of first talks this month as well. Are you working in Hyderabad?
No, I'm from Bangalore. I'm a third year.
You traveled here for this?
Yeah.
Okay, I think you should have coordinated. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll put you in touch with the Bangalore folks so that you have an easier time giving talks.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you everyone. We'll be back next month, and Ibrahim, I'm going to put you on the spot. I don't want to do next month. You do next month. You do everything next month. Yeah, I think let's like slowly make our way down so that we're not occupying this space. We can continue having a brief conversation near the parking area, and then hopefully I'll see like most of you, not all of you, next month again. Okay, that's good. Hey, I said no problem.